You to wear your lecturer hat just for a second and help us understand what constitutes a default.
A default is inability to repay the loan that you have been given. It actually means that you are not credit worthy. That's actually what it means. It means that you cannot be trusted that you will pay back from the people that gave you the loan, and it brings negative sentiment about you in the foreign market when you are a defaulter.
All right, so Ken, again, so there's the question, there's an argument on, so do we open up for a buyback? Anyone who wants to buy back, basically just sell these shares that they had bought into and maybe see if that could salvage the situation? So I want you to, so basically when you talk about a buyback, what exactly are we talking about in this situation as far as Eurobonds are concerned?
Well, when a government sells a bond or a gilt, really you're selling debt. And the idea is at a certain period in time, when the maturity of that debt is due, you'll pay back the principal, and in between you'll be paying the coupons.
Yeah.
One of the ideas that has been floated, since that amount is quite significant, that needs to be paid next year, is if part of that can be paid, can be bought back by the government, then what needs to be paid next year would be much less. And that appeared to be the idea within Treasury. But I think what the ratings agencies, Moody is saying, is when you buy back at par value, really what that might constitute a loss for investors, and that might be viewed as a default. So I think it's really a plea to the think tanks to consider other options of how to pay back the Eurobond next year. You still have a whole year. There's still time. Time is on our side. There's still time, but that notion that you could buy it back seems to have been punctured really by at least one of the agencies.
All right, so Dr. I just want to read an exact quote from Moody's, which says, "We deem a distress exchange occurs when there are economic losses to creditors and when the transaction has the effect of allowing the issuers to avoid a likely eventual default." When you hear that coming from such an institution, what do you make of it? Is this is a default given in this situation? Like, can we say that definitely Kenya is going to default when you hear such comments?
Not really definitely, but then what it says is that, you know, it might not leave it like definitely, but it shows that the chances of not defaulting are very low. You know, they will. I don't want to put it 100%. I want to put it something like 95%, sort of. And probably it's not only Moody's. We have Fitch rating and Standards and Poor's who have also rated it negatively. So that actually leaves us in a precarious situation, and probably that means coming back home to borrow from home, which actually will crowd our markets.
All right, so Ken, in about 30 seconds, I just want to get your sentiments. Just trying to explain the difference between a buyback and a swap. What is that difference for someone who might see this jargon and not necessarily understand what are we talking about, what are we discussing?
Well, really the buyback is really the issuer of the bond saying that we would want to be the custodians of what we have sold for particular reasons. So it's something that, for a variety of reasons, particularly in Kenya, where our outlook is maybe our dollar, there could be some dollar shortage. It's sort of like some prudential approach. But I don't think, Jimmy, this whole thing should generate as much concern as it is. If you look at our reserves at the central bank, we have about $7 billion worth of reserves. So even in the worst case scenario, and you'd like to imagine that there'll be more dollars coming from the diaspora, from our exports. So I think it's something that the mandarins at Treasury need to reassure the market that you have more than enough dollars. It should not generate the kind of sort of negative energy that it appears to be generating online. There's still time and there's still the latitude.
All right, so Daktari, as we want to wrap up this conversation, and I'm sure these are figures that maybe you have interacted with, what are the actual chances of Kenya defaulting?
I think it should sound a warning to us in terms of possibility of default. The chances of defaulting are higher because of the tight situation that we are in.
All right.
Yeah.
So on that note, I think we'll probably just take one more story, which is thank you, first of all, for coming. I know we're trying to make the most of the time we have. Now, low-cost carrier, that is Jambojet, has increased its fleet capacity to 8. Now that move is has set the airline ahead of its peers in the market. Now, according to the CEO, Karanja Ndegwa, the move has been occasioned by the increasing demand in the country. I spoke to the airline management team, and this is what they had.